Welcome to the sixth One Show. Today is June 19th. Nothing heard here is financial advice. Please exercise respect when talking with others. Please raise hands to talk in the X spaces, especially if it's heated. Hopefully this will be an interactive space. Our mission is to have this X spaces evolve into something beneficial for the entire Harmonauts community, made by the Harmonauts community. The initial format. We've posted some potential topics in the Google document. Tenacious DeFi will read through all the posted topics, ask for feedback from the speakers, hopefully move into organic and constructive conversation. At any point, people can request to move to another topic or elaborate on the topic at hand. Thanks everybody for tuning in today live or listening in the future. Lastly, there are 4 Harmonauts that can modify the Google document, which is what I was saying in the intro. I have access, Peace and Love has access, DOP, and Selby have access to update any part of this Google document for One Show. Please feel free to reach out to any of us to make any modifications. Let's read this last one. One Show will last approximately 2 hours. We've been running an hour and a half. We might even maybe go shorter today, depending on what's going on, see how everybody's doing. If you have an important topic and you can't stay for the entire X Spaces, please make it known at the beginning and we will get to you first. All right, some topics that are listed. Some of these are reoccurring. I just leave them on there because I think they're personally important. We can talk or not talk about. So explain the difference between burning tokens via smart contract or sending the tokens to a dead wallet. We have some DeFi updates with the link. Harmony One DAO's updates, the Harmonauts DAO. I guess I didn't take that off, but the LBI has been accomplished already, and CryptoLand DAO had a successful launch, and the mint is ending in 6 days. Next, we have some extensive Harmony One updates. I'm not going to read through all that. Hopefully, if Theo comes, I'm going to throw that one at him. 5. Recovery 1 and R1 Ambassador updates. Announcement of the R1 Ambassadors AMA, July 3rd at One Show 7, so 2 weeks from right now. The grant is posted on talk.harmony1, and I'll just let people read about it, and we can go into it here in a little bit. 6, we got community partnerships with Harmony Indonesia, X CoinFest Asia. It's in the bottom of the notes on the One Show Google document. We have ChainSpot and a link for that. The Polymorpher built the GMX DeFi system, we'll call it. That's the link there. It's on there. Also, this is huge. So the upcoming June 20th hard fork, so I think it's like 10 hours from now. I think most of the people have switched over. I think we're maybe at enough to make it work, I believe. Maybe somebody can talk about that. And last, Harmony Protocol implemented smart contracts on Harmony Shard 1 to seamlessly transition Bitcoin runes into ERC20 tokens, embracing BTC. And if some of these sound familiar, I just grabbed some of these off of Kratos' posts because that's where a lot of the juicy information comes from. So, all right, we got that out of the way. Yeah, there's notes on the bottom. We can just kind of pick up where you guys want to start. You guys have any kind of intro for us here before we go into a topic? Anybody want to choose a topic first? I don't know, Matt, do you want to do a recovery update? What are we doing?
Yeah, I could do that. I could do recovery, and we can hold off on the ambassador details. But yeah, I can start with the summary of round 20. So I'll jump into it. So the round 20 started May 16th with the recovery multi-sig custodians sending 10.5 million one tokens to the burn partners. They were split up 75% to recovery 1, 25% going to Modulo. In round 20, Recovery 1 burned 864,000. Modulo, respectively, burned 48,000. The reason for the lower burn from Modulo is directly correlated to their new strategy to hold one tokens. And they are currently sitting on 4.6 million wrapped one tokens. So in total, through 20 rounds, the burn partners have burned 22.6 million in depegged assets since the hack. So we're coming up on June 24th. That's going to be 2 years. So it's in 2 years we've burned, the recovery partners have burned 22.6 million in depegged assets. So I think this is really kind of, we had to look at this as a significant accomplishment, right? So many chains, after they have some type of event like this, they don't do the right thing, and Harmony decided to do the right thing and to step up and to have a solution that wasn't just inflating, but it was to actually recover and to creatively provide those people that got hacked with ways to exchange. And so we're in that process. It's not over. The initial plan called for a 4-year period. The HIP 30 version 2 called for a little bit slower version of that recovery plan because not as much allocated. But still, we're on pace. And then if you were to go, so Chef Suey Sauce created an amazing platform. I'll post this on Twitter. But he says, with all recovery efforts and people volunteering and burning just out of their goodwill, we've burned 23.3 million depegged assets. So a little bit more than the burn partners. And that's great. So that's it for round 20. Round 21 has commenced today on the Recovery Exchange. Medulo has not yet announced the start of 21. I'm sure that will come soon. There has been one major change to the Recovery Exchange. So we have a larger allocation over the last 4 burn rounds. So we changed the max wallet. It used to be 600, and then after a week it would go to 1,800, and then it would go to 2,400. So we changed it to a larger amount that people can exchange, and it starts now at 1,000, then it goes to 2,000, and then it goes up to 4,000 after 3 weeks. So there was a lot of people looking to exchange. You know, we get at least 300 people coming to exchange every single month. And they just needed a larger wallet size to do so. So we increased that. And the people that come to the Recovery Exchange are those affected wallets, right? So the people that can exchange through our platform are the ones that were hacked, the pre-hacked wallets. And that's it for round 21. I know I have some more details to share later on, but I don't want to hog all the time. So back to you, Mr. Eric.
Yeah, thanks for the updates. I think it's a lot easier for people to wrap their heads around nice round numbers. And basically, it was a $100 million hack. If we're over 25 million, we're over 25%. I think that's relatively easy for people to understand. It's easy to get confused with the pegged and depegged and this much and was this much and might be worth that much. And easy. I appreciate easy. Theo, you're up. I think that's probably one of the biggest topics that we have this week is the Harmony One hard forks. So would you like to maybe go into some detail about that? Plus, minuses, what people need, how we're doing on getting consensus moving in the right direction. And welcome.
Yeah, appreciate it. First of all, happy Juneteenth for those in the U.S. Don't know if there are any other holidays around the world, but if there are, then happy whatever that holiday is. But I think pluses and minuses, whenever you get into hard forks, if you have more minuses than pluses, you probably shouldn't be hard forking. So I'd say this is definitely positive. This kind of touches on more of the fixes for validators. There was like a staking and kind of undelegation issue that I see some of you here are validators, and in that Telegram that we have that's been quite active. And again, right, a lot of this was found by a community member, so it's in terms of the benefit of having like a strong community is everyone's on the same team. So you have people that might be noticing something, and there's kind of two actors, right? You can be silent and you can exploit, or you can kind of push for what's best for the ecosystem. And that's kind of how this is playing out. So that'll be June 20th. And the big thing is to get all the validators to be on board and to actually update their configurations before the 20th. Most of the validators that we've had have all updated and upgraded and gone through a few hard forks. So it's nothing too crazy. I will say that there was recently Casey actually released the entire more technical report on exactly what's going on, which like with transparency and everything is they've done a great job on the protocol side. That I believe is on the talk forum. And again, just ensuring that the valid right now it's like, okay, the 5 most critical PRs, like I'm just trying to remember off the top of my head. I think we posted things on Twitter, so you can either go to my page or the main protocol page, and you can get updates there as well, and Casey's profile as well. But the kind of 5 main PRs have been merged, and then you have the node upgrades have been all completed, and then the rest is now okay. Let's get all the validator configurations to be all synced up, so that we're good to go, and we hard fork, and the chain is better for it. That's kind of the high level overview. I think if you really want to kind of deep dive into the full report, I would say start with Casey's report. If you can get into the validator Telegram, that's another good place, and then the talk forum. Those are going to be the 3 best bets for that.
Nice. And I think I saw something like it was 50% ish on shard 1 and 0. Is that relatively correct? Is that a metric? I mean, I know like Peace and Love used to share. You can tell how many validators have switched over. I mean, are we looking good there?
I don't have the numbers on top of my head of exactly how many on each shard have switched over. Usually, like I guarantee somebody in the space has done something to help out on that kind of transparency side of trying to. I mean, like whenever you fork and you have a network, like you have to have active validators. So I'd say it's always a good sign when you can go through a successful hard fork. I think it's not something that's just trivial. You need both kind of like a technical prowess, but also a community one where everyone's on board and everyone's still active. So always good signs to see that that's healthy and continuing. But as far as exact numbers for percentages, I don't have that.
Nice. I mean, I find it interesting, and I mean, just like most of the DeFi space. But I mean, if you have more validators that don't want to do the hard fork, then basically the hard fork doesn't happen, right? Isn't that a thing?
Yeah, exactly.
That happened with.
Sorry, go ahead.
Like I mean, it happened with Bitcoin, right? And that like Bitcoin Cash and a couple other ones, like they wanted to do it. You know, I think they call them the block size wars and all that. Like they wanted to do it, and they just didn't have enough validators, and the original stuck, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that, like a lot of things with kind of forks and carrying on, like that specific chain. Like when you do fork, you could have a scenario where no one wants to change, and then the fork doesn't actually happen. And then like you look at how to fork certain chains and things like that, and that's one of the ways to do it. Like it's not like a guarantee. That's why again you need that strong community support and kind of everyone working together to see, okay, how do you do it? And if usually there's always like a few issues, like people they'll see that they're maybe if an uptime goes down slightly, or they'll like validators, especially on Harmony, are kind of actively checking to make sure that they're processing blocks and everything. So then on that side, it's like, okay, if somebody does have a little bit of an issue or has some things, that's where that Harmony validator Telegram comes in handy. Because again, you have like 4, 5, 6, sometimes like 10 to 12 people that are just active and can help you out. And yeah, and then if everybody's on board, everyone accepts, hard fork goes smoothly. You don't really notice too much, like from a user perspective. Like a whole lot of stuff could be going on behind the scenes, especially for like upgrading network security and all this stuff. But kind of if you're on a DApp or something, you won't really notice too much unless it's like a insane upgrade or stuff happens. Like you won't notice it.
I mean, just for instance, too, just kind of tying this topic and the last topic. I think at first, after the hack, some people wanted to fork the chain and just basically do what the U.S. government does and most governments do, and just basically increase the supply to get us out of our debt. Right? Isn't that correct?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's one of like the blessings and the curse of crypto is that when you have like all these chains can be forked, and you can make your own kind of harmony if you want to, and then that like really emphasizes the backbone of a community, because from a technical standpoint you can have the exact same chain. Then what's your differentiation? What's that factor that makes you different from chain A versus chain B? And then on the other hand, it's you would kind of want, like, imagine we were like all these different forks were actually just one chain and everyone was updating. And that's why you have kind of different protocols that have been created like that around the space that don't necessarily need to hard fork, and they want to kind of push consensus over these hard forks. So you would kind of have everyone in agreement before, and then the chain would continue, and you wouldn't have to fork. It's kind of like you can do kind of these updates that aren't as drastic, but that's more of like a newer generation type thing. There's some layer ones that do it, but not all of them. And then kind of the Ethereum side of what was the norm and everything, and what led to Harmony, which Harmony, again, right, sharding, staking, all these things before Ethereum. I think a few years before. I think it's like three or 4 years before Ethereum got around to proof of stake. Somebody else might know the exact dates, but things like that, right? Like there's all these different ways that protocols kind of go through consensus, go through updates, or go through kind of these hard forks. And it's all like they all have their unique positives and negatives.
Yeah, Ethereum hasn't. I think is it the Dane Coon or something, and maybe two more updates before they introduce like the sharding type stuff. And Harmony's already. I don't know if it was it October, November, I think last year. Went from 4 to 2, and it's been confirmed from Soph and Casey that you can add or remove at will. So I mean that's huge, right? I mean, how many other blockchains, if any, can say that?
Yeah, exactly. And going from 4 to 2 and having the chain like continue on, I think is super impressive, as well as dApps and everything, kind of people that were leveraging different chains. And then you can play around with the narratives of like having Shard Zero be like the kind of beacon chain, the go-to place, and then you could have Shard One for gaming, AI. Like you can play around with these different things from a protocol level, but in terms of just being able to have that manipulation of multi-sharded chain, it definitely gives you a bit more room. Like let's say like we always say, right, the 10 consensus for 10 billion people. Like, okay, maybe we don't have 10 billion people, but if we have, say, 7 to 8 billion people, and then a few billion bots or something, which who knows, we might get it to a point where there's like 100 billion bots or something on Harmony, with all AI and all that expansion. But yeah, you can expand to kind of 2 to 4, and who knows, maybe even more shards, depending on the capacity that you might need. But again, right, we've seen more of like a like again uptick in maybe efficiency or all these things. Like there's similar to consensus protocols, like when you have multi-sharded chains, there's positives and drawbacks as well.
Nice. I love your explanation. Matt, did you guys have anything to say before we maybe roll into a different topic, or maybe you have something you want to talk about, guys? Mic check. Let's hear some Matt wisdom. Come on, come on. I'm not letting you up. We're gonna be quiet until one of you guys does it. Who's gonna go first?
Quick question about the shards. It may be stupid, but one was like, how many shards could there theoretically be? Like an infinite amount, or like
Well,
yeah,
I know. Sofa just said that they can build at will, right? So if we need more traffic, or like Theo was saying, you could have like specific stuff. So maybe you kind of had the regular layer and then you had a gaming layer. Maybe if AI takes off, you could have an AI shard. I think it just depends on some things. But I just know I've asked 2 or 3 different builders that they can scale, add or remove at will. So whatever the cause, and then it'd be more opportunity for more validators as well.
yeah. What would be the requirements per shard? Like, would you need a certain amount of validators to be able to open up a new shard, or could somebody buy their own shard?
Yeah, and that's exactly it, right? Like at the end of the day, you need validators to validate transactions on shards, and if you reduce the number of shards, you're also like in theory reducing the number of validators, and then if you have like that fast finality and things, there's kind of like this opportunity threshold, I'd say, of kind of maximum finality based on validators, and then yeah, it would be open to kind of if we needed that space and there was that kind of desire and that need for using up the chain. Like we see a lot of chains that have maybe like they're running at like 90% capacity, and it's kind of like they're using up a bulk of the chain, but their chain isn't actually efficient. And currently, I think um, Harmony is around 1%, right? Maybe even lower. But what that shows you is like as a chain itself, it's incredibly efficient, and there's still a lot of room with the 2 shards that we have. And I think what I would want to see, rather than kind of this expansion of shards first, is really kind of making sure that there's that demand and that ecosystem side that's kind of finished and polished. And then if we get to a point where we're pushing that 90% barrier, we have an avenue of expanding to those multiple shards. I think that would be kind of a cool way to do it, rather than kind of pushing these shards first and going from like 4 to 8, and who knows, like even like 100 shards or something, and then you could have like a shard per DApp or whatever, right? You can expand in different ways, and there could be cool things where you could have a shard that like might have a closed. You could do different shards, I guess, per jurisdictions in the world, and you could say like, oh, this shard is only for people who are in Europe, and then like Harmony regulations or whatever. Like there's kind of all these different situations that you can kind of you can place a little bit of game theory to scale out. But in terms of the immediate future, I would say it's kind of focusing more on ecosystem growth, and then really pushing the barrier of our current protocol, and then expanding if we need to.
Maybe a CBDC shard in the future. There's some compliance.
It's really.
Well, thank you. Yeah.
I was just thinking it's really interesting discussion, and I would like to kind of pick Theo's brain a little bit more too. When do you guys think, like in this cycle, when do you expect, I guess, internally to see that expansion based off the different initiatives that you guys are building?
That's a great question. I think if I knew exactly, I think I would be tweeting it 24/7, and I try to let everybody know. But in terms of kind of like, we can look at the steps that we've been taking, right? Like over the past year and a half, Harmony kind of we're kind of in this regrouping phase of trying different things, right? And we ventured into AI for a little bit, and then now we're circling back into DeFi. And through that venture, right, we've had Swap, which is a Uniswap v3. We have Lend, which is Compound, and then looking towards that kind of perpetual exchange. So with these kind of incubations and Protofire and that side, you have kind of that ecosystem side to it, but then on the other side you have the recovery, right? Like Recovery One, Modulo, all this stuff, the RMC, which I'm going quickly, and like we could dive down into each of these aspects, but we kind of have like two aspects. One is recovery, making kind of users to allow them to recover for those that were affected by the hack. And then the other side is, okay, now that they're recovered, what do we give them, right? We've always had this narrative of, okay, let's prioritize recovery. Well, if we prioritize recovery and there's not an ecosystem for them to be recovered to, they'll get recovered and then they leave, and it's not super beneficial for Harmony as a protocol. So it's okay, how do we kind of create this entire ecosystem where they get recovered, then they use the Harmony products, and everyone wins, right? Like Harmony holders, Harmony users, DeFi, degens, or DApp builders, right? We create kind of this, not necessarily an incubator, but just an environment that has all these aspects, right? And that might touch into the R1, right? The new proposal with kind of staking, right? Staking and support through that versus kind of a grant program where it's kind of money in, money out, but more of a consistent funding based on, it would still be based on milestones and things like that. And if you want, you can share more on that. But in terms of timelines, like a lot of this stuff is just getting the primitives done, which is on the service level, it's making sure that it's on Harmony, making sure that we can give Harmony users the tools that they enjoy, maybe on other chains. And then it's really a battle, in my opinion, a battle for user interface and user experience. I think very, very few protocols, especially, I mean, the industry is crazy early. And forgive me for going off on a little bit of a tangent, but like look at the top 100, like there's not really that much that's special going on. And I think from a technical standpoint, chains are not too far apart from each other. Like if you have like say Arbitrum versus Solana in terms of popularity, in terms of user growth, in terms of all these things, like in my opinion, and again, right, people are going to disagree with me, but I do not think that's something that's a technical like it's not technically correlated, right? Like the better tech you have, the higher like market cap you have. Absolutely not, because you have meme coins that don't have any tech that are valued higher than others, right? So this is the environment that we're playing in. But that's only the environment currently. You know, how do we expand 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now when, okay, the kind of crypto boom of memes and all these things, and I'm not saying memes will go away, because it's kind of like this financialization of memetics, which is a pretty cool area of study if you guys want to do that. But in terms of the technology, right, of, okay, there's the internet boom, but the Microsofts, the Apple, the Googles, all these, right, they stayed around long term, and now they're like some of the most valuable companies, right? How do you bridge that gap when now crypto is understood as just a crypto, right, environment instead of a technology environment? And a lot of that, like now you think like, okay, like what's hype now, what's going here, oh, this chain hasn't really done much in the past, or all these things. But if you really look at it, like and I've said this so many times, but every single chain is one DApp away from mass adoption. Like it's like the whole chain maximalism and things like that. Okay, sure, you know, you got your bags early and you're trying to pump stuff and whatnot, right? Again, none of this is not financial advice, but if you work on that one DApp that might have, say, a Robinhood effect, or it's like UI or UX or something where the primitives are there, you know, like the financialization and decentralization of money is there. You know, that first use case for peer-to-peer transactions and lending, and if you want to do trade futures, right, like that's kind of been made in the space, but that itself hasn't been adopted. Does that happen within a year? If all things go right, maybe. But I think a lot of it comes down to, okay, step one, you have to have the primitives. Step two, you have to have like this one unified anchor. Like, okay, we get the primitives, you get the anchor. And this is kind of like the ideal, like 2 to 5 years of DeFi specifically, right? Because Harmony protocol and everything can expand in different ways. But if we put that aside real quick for DeFi, now you have a place that you can swap, you can lend your assets, you can trade futures. Potentially soon we'll have options. So now you have these, and I guess perpetual options, which doesn't exist in any market currently. Like the opportunity of doing an option that doesn't expire. So that's a new financial tool that I think like Panoptic is a new company and everything. They're not even on mainnet yet, which could see kind of this adoption. And they work closely with Uniswap v3. We have a Uniswap v3 on Harmony, and you start to create this environment where almost similar to what Jupiter is now, where not necessarily a lot of people would choose Jupiter because of Solana, but more so because of what they can do on it. And I mean, it was incentivized by an airdrop. So there's also that aspect. But just being able to do kind of the things that all of us in the space, if we've ever ventured into DeFi, we create like 4 or 5 wallets for, we like there's so many like seed phrases and all this stuff that we have to put on our own shoulders to access it, which is actually friction for the masses. So if that's the current state that we're in, if we focus on just removing those frictions, then will lead to a much easier path to the masses. Now, is that a definitive, like if we build it, they will come? No, right? But I think just for those stepping stones is, rather than focusing on, okay, what is going to give us mass adoption, let's focus on what has worked and make sure that it's working and to our standards on Harmony, right? Let's make sure that there's a DeFi ecosystem that like everyone in the space that we know is using, right? Or everyone is talking about, or kind of they have a space to do what they want to do. They have the liquidity, they have the technical background in terms of like the dApps at their disposal. So currently in a year, right, we have swap and lend, and then shortly we'll have a perpetual exchange. Recovery continues. And then it's that next step. Okay. And once you have the primitives, so once you have them, you work to make sure that, one, the customers are happy, and two, that you're a market leader. Because once you have the primitives, you're on the same page as everybody else. And then how do you differentiate being a market leader versus not? Then you get more into that, like, okay, do you incentivize with an airdrop, and do you have a point system? And you get into many of these like business and strategy and growth tactics that you can play around with. But again, you have to have the building blocks first. So this kind of year and a half has been getting those primitives. Then you look at about a year of fine tuning, and then you have a year of expansion. So is that to say all of it will be done in 3 years? Maybe not. Does it take longer to get all the forks and everything done first in the technical side? I would say so. I would say, like, in terms of kind of design and marketing and all that stuff, like it has a very big part to it, but the hard stuff is kind of out the way. So would that be year 2 and year 3 instead of having the whole thing be in 2 years because the hard part's already done? It could be. But I think that's kind of the area where the current kind of stepping stone is, what I would say, of getting to that point where there is that opportunity for adoption would be 1 year from now. I'd say a year and a half. But again, I'm like, this is, like this is, you could say whatever, right? Like I could say, oh, it'll happen in 4 months, right? Like you never know in this space.
So it's a phenomenal answer. And I think everybody here knows that Harmony has always been super technically strong. So I want to expand upon this, because you were mentioning a little bit about funding, grants, and Casey mentioned, maybe it was like a half a year ago, that ideally he would like the validators to build, right? To build. That was his ideal. And I know I've always thought of staking in a different way, and maybe this is wrong, maybe this is coming, but I always saw staking as like an internet bond, right? The chain has utility, it's doing well, it has transactions, the value will go up. It also gives you rewards. It's kind of like an internet bond in my head. And then I always saw the validators as kind of employees. They're working to validate the chain. How do we get to Casey's to his ideal? Because you also talked about there's a lot of building that needs to be done from the core team. How do you activate the already strong community to get to what Casey wants? Because I think that was a really insightful thing. I don't think it was explored enough. So how do you get the validator community to actually truly get involved and take the next step? So I think that's my question.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think my answer would probably be twofold. One, that I don't necessarily agree with Casey, which, I mean, he and I will both agree wholeheartedly and go to the end of the earth on something, and we might disagree, and we'll like compromise and try to go through things. I've learned actually so much this year from Casey. So on that side of things, like, it's not necessarily a direct agreement, because in my opinion, right, immediately in terms of asking a validator to also build a dApp is, like, to me, I feel like is might be seen as a gut punch or something, right? Like when you're actually validating and, like, essentially you're carrying the chain on your shoulders and you're putting in that, it's like thankless work pretty much. And yeah, okay, you get a staking reward and all this stuff, but that intrinsically, if you don't have that, you don't have a chain, right? So trying to add something else on top of it, I can also see one side where that might be like just a step too far. But on the other side, what's the underlying thing that Casey's touching on, which is that community development, right? That community side of building, like the staking different staking dashboards, or Chef Soy Sauce, who's doing the recovery stuff, like Knights and Peasants, or like Cryptoland DAO. Like, you have these different things in the ecosystem that are so important that you don't, like, it's permissionless. You can just build if you want to build, but you do have to fall back and realize, okay, wait a minute, like, not necessarily everybody has the opportunity to just build when they want to. Like, that's why you have, like, employees or people who work for different companies and different maybe dApp developers and things like that. What I would say on Harmony, the advantage is that there's not, like, in terms of dApps and everything, there's not too much of that competition. So if you're trying to access liquidity or you want to build a successful dApp, your kind of friction of competing within the space is lower on Harmony than it could be on, say, Arbitrum or Base or these different chains. So that has an effect as well, depending on if you're a dApp builder and you want to see, okay, like, I want to test this out, or I want to see how this goes. Like, one of the lowest frictions is on Harmony. And you if you already know, like, Ethereum and everything, like, Harmony's EVM, so you're good to go on that side. I think the biggest thing that you're touching on is that group of people that want to do something, might want to build more, spend a bit more time, but I guess from a financial standpoint might not be able to, like that, like, time is money. And if, you don't have that grant or that funding, how could you ever expect somebody to do something like that? I think that, again, right, is twofold, because on one hand, you have grants that you can send enormous amounts of money that end up nowhere, right? You could have billions and billions that you put into something and you don't actually get anything out of it. And on the other hand, you can have an incubated community with not necessarily any funding that rises to the top, and isn't tied to any kind of investments or anything like that. I think somewhere in the middle, which I'm very, very curious to kind of see if we can actually test out on Harmony, is that staking side, which is more of that, like, not necessarily direct funding, but it's kind of a way that you can bootstrap not only the network security, but you can also bootstrap the ecosystem development. And you'd be able to do both with kind of one stone, so to speak. And on that side, you would have still things that are tied to metrics, and you would have to have milestones. And you could even do it in a decentralized manner if you wanted to. Like what if with the RMC, Recovery Multi-Sig Custodians, or maybe there's another DAO that you have that you promote even more, that like controls that kind of ecosystem staking, and then it's voted on, and you can have governance, and you can have all these things. But again, once we get to these kind of ideals, like it's very, very easy to just talk about them and say like, okay, like that would be super cool, right? It'd be super cool to have the entire community part of this DAO that stakes with certain projects, and if they hit their milestones, they continue stake until they can get like a bonus time period of like, say it's the first 6 months, and then if they hit all of them, they get another 6 months. And what you do is you incubate, and you tell them like, hey, like the max that you can do is 2 or maybe 3 years, right? And you give them that horizon, where now it's like, rather than promoting dApps that are dependent on grants, which is another negative that grants have, where you'll have teams that know that they can get that funding, and they'll continuously try to either apply for those funds, or maybe even from a business standpoint, they haven't really thought out of, hey, how do I make this profitable? How do I earn revenue so I can continue and then eventually not rely on grants? Well, in this case, you could say like, hey, the maximum they can possibly have is a stake for 3 years, and you have to pass the milestones at at 6 months, 1 year, year and a half, 2 years, whatever you want to set up. Like this is something that would have to be thought out. People would have to have discussions on, talk forums. Like it's not something that you just snap your fingers and you're like, hey, we have this defined way and process of doing things. But just by having these conversations, and Matt, the thing that you've been bringing up with R1, that at least starts that conversation. I think that would be one way to kind of get in between that side of not necessarily validators themselves building dApps, because a lot of validators, they might not necessarily know how to build a dApp or want to build a dApp, but we shouldn't penalize them for it. We shouldn't expect more of them. Like they're already, in my opinion, they're carrying the chain for it. But we do want to incentivize ecosystem development more than we are now. And I think that staking side, if that is that solution, that's a potential way to go to it. But there might be other things that through these discussions people have that might be a bit better. But again, that's kind of that neutral ground of not necessarily a validator doing it, but just ecosystem development in general.
And I don't think any other chains are doing this. I think they're still kind of following the old way of grants, and then, send it and then pray that they're doing well and hit a milestone. So I think it would be an innovative and it would be almost a new trend that Harmony could steer and get ahead of, which would provide a lot of value. It's definitely interesting.
Yeah, I think 100%. Like just like real quick on that of kind of other chains, and like we're on this space together, like in terms of different chains that might not necessarily be doing things, but we also are all in this space. So we're a bit biased towards Harmony, but like looking around the space the other day, I saw like what was it? Avalanche was launching. I might say 100 million, but it was a lot of money. It was definitely in the millions for like meme coins and like a meme coin craze or all this stuff. And it's like, what are we trying to do in this space? Like what is our goal, right? Is that something that we really want to push for? Is it like how are we thinking of, okay, what is the rest of the space doing, and do we want to follow in those footsteps, or do we want to kind of regroup, take what's working and try to innovate where we can?
Yeah, it looks like they didn't learn the lesson of the DAOs with Harmony.
What if you could take this idea potentially and turn this into the next big dApp potentially? If it did work, if you could have it have the staking mechanism, and whenever things are met, you interact through the smart contracts and take away the human factor and all that. I mean, I think that's a lot of where Web3 is trying to go through, the trustless smart contract thing. If you could, take this principle and somehow model it, to be deployed on different chains, potentially, or different projects or something along those lines.
Yeah, I think, and again, like on paper, that's phenomenal. I think it's, and like these discussions are so important, and the reason why I bring that up is like we look at Phantom, for example, which they have their FSwap, FUSD, different things, right? They have their own kind of ecosystem tooling, primarily a DeFi chain as well. And then you look at the incentivizations, right? And a lot of that for dApp development comes from volume. And when you have kind of the trustless or permissionless and all these things, you have to set up parameters that dApps like metrics that they have to attain, and if they don't get funding, and if they do, they get funding. So you look at a metric, you say like daily active users, you say wallets, you can say volume. Okay, now you take those three things and you incentivize dApps only on those three things. And you say, hey, if you hit like 100K daily active users, you're doing 1 million volume per day. We'll give you like, I don't know, anywhere from like 50 to 100K or million, whatever, right? X amount of dollars. And then right after they hit those metrics, you give them the money, and like it doesn't exist, like a lot, like you could have wash trading, you could have all these things, right? That you wouldn't necessarily have if you had humans in the loop, which I think is kind of that sweet spot of DAOs, that you can have kind of different automations, but you could also have different checklists. And I think from a business standpoint, it's very, very hard to write down the recipe of mass adoption. I think if it was trivial, I think everybody would already have it. You can definitely learn things from other people, but no one in crypto has found it yet, which is both like a bit daunting, but on the other hand, it's very, very hopeful for the next few years, right? That it's open for anybody.
It's opportunity, right?
Isn't the secret sauce just stakeholdership? The more people that have ownership and have stakeholder in something, that creates the network effect, because they want to share it. Not to oversimplify anything, but I think that's it, really.
I think staking is somewhat like DAOs, right? Because you're all relatable. If you're a validator and you're a delegator and you're earning rewards, you're all kind of in the same game together. Same thing with a DAO. If you're in that DAO, you guys agree on certain things and you participate and steer the direction of the DAO. So I think that's, I think that hopefully I'm picking up what you're putting down, and that, and along with the ETFs or tokenize everything, it's all kind of in the direction I think hopefully we're heading, with the new stuff that's getting, crypto friendly things in the government in the US. It's bullish that we could get there quicker. I like trying to go for the time horizon, but it could come like super fast, or it could take a while. It depends on just the mood set by the world, right? Macro. Cool conversation, guys.
Hey guys, can I jump in real quick and just point to something, since we're kind of on this topic, and then we can jump to another one?
Yeah, okay. Indeed.
All right. So we were kind of talking about the funding proposal that we put out, and last week Matt, also known as Affirmation, talked a little bit about the program. So over the last 2 weeks, we got a lot of feedback from different validators, from different stakeholders, with discussions from other communities that were involved in the recovery, and we posted an update. And one of the biggest pieces that we did, we kind of changed the language. So we talk a little bit about grants and how they have a negative connotation. So we took that out of the language, and we're just talking about a funding mechanism. And so if everybody could please, that does watch this or listen to this, go to the talk forum. I'm going to post something within this space to review our new funding proposal. And we'll talk about what we plan on doing, how we plan to grow the ambassador program, how we plan to bring on new projects to Harmony, how we plan to launch an incubator to bring in liquid staking protocols and some other initiatives. We're asking for a 20 million one stake that would yield about $26,000 a year to fund this. And our program has 6 people in it. We have smart contract developers, business development people, people that are project managers, designers, validators. So we have a super, super strong team that has been assembled over the last year. So if you can take a look at it, we would like to hear from Lee and Stephen to see, their feedback. So that's it. We're also going to have a next, Eric, what is it? On June 3rd, we're going to do a quick AMA and go over some more details.
Yeah, same time, same place, but maybe we'll do like a regular kind of edition in the beginning and then save the second half just for that. Or if the conversation goes there first, then that's what we'll go. But yeah, definitely have some dedicated time for community interaction live.
Cool. Yeah, we just want to open it up and have people. We're going to promote it like crazy and get some good feedback and questions going. But yeah, that's what I just wanted to bring up. Sorry for hogging the space.
I appreciate it. You got some awesome questions, and yeah, the talk.1 link is on the Google link, which is currently posted in this space, and it's also posted below the pinned post on my X account there too. So you can go there. You can go to the talk.harmony.1 and find it. How else can they find it, Matt?
We'll make all the links available. We'll post them.
Links to be flying all over the place. So we like sharing links. Cool. I think one of the coolest things about this program, trying to look at it objectively, not being a part of it, but hopefully this would not only become self-sustaining, but hopefully be able to lift and promote and pass this along too. So this could just be the snowball getting started and hopefully rolling down the hill and gaining steam. So I see the potential. The write-up is very extensive and detailed, and yeah, definitely looking forward to getting feedback on that. One more kind of show note. I think after the 3rd, we'll be skipping a week, so there'll be like a 3-week break in between, just so everybody knows. Let's see. Got that. I guess Theo, you kind of hit on it earlier, and it goes back to something I had on here and some things that Kratos had been posting. So since you kind of hit on Jupiter, could you? I've heard of Jupiter. I don't really know if it's tied to Solana, if it's its own blockchain. But could you talk about a little bit about that and what what's been going on with the development? I can't even hardly speak about it because it's there's a pretty extensive post, and I don't know if you have access to the Google document, but it's number 4 on there. A lot of stuff on there.
I think so. Solana, or I guess Jupiter on Solana is originally it started out as just a aggregator. I think DEX aggregator in its early days. And then only fairly recently they added a perpetual exchange, so futures, where I think we talked about it briefly in the last space, but just to cover it up and like as quickly as possible, you can do spot trading and you can kind of do trades on the asset themselves, or you can trade on direction of the direction that it's going to be in the future. I think if to put it most simply, if you bet that it's going to go up, or you think that it's going to go up and it does, you would make more than just holding that asset that went up, right? Let's say the asset goes up 1%. or 2% or something, and you were trading on a perpetual exchange and you thought that it would go up, sometimes you can make like 10% on just that too. And obviously it expands more, and depending on kind of how high certain things are, you can make all kinds of money. But again, right, in terms of we talk about doing your own research in crypto, I think if you ever want to look into options or perpetuals, 100% do your own research before you touch buy or sell. That would probably be the best non-financial advice I think I can give somebody. YouTube, great free source. Really take the time to understand what you're getting into. Because on certain sides, if you're uncovered, you can have unlimited losses, and I think that's the greatest danger that you can have in these markets. On the upside, you can access leverage and margin. You can, which is just fancy words of accessing liquidity that's more than you have. So you can have $100 and have 100x leverage, and then you have a lot more funds than just $100. So it's kind of on both sides, right? High risk, high reward. And there's different strategies, right? With options and all these kind of things that we can deep dive if we ever want to do kind of one of those kinds of spaces. But just sticking as high level as I can with the perpetual exchanges. So now you have a way of kind of essentially betting if it's something's going to go up or down. So a lot of people like that, like they want to have access to more liquidity. They want to have access to more funds, and they want to try to chase that like 100%, 200% gain off of like a 10% move of the underlying asset. And perpetuals and futures allows you to do that. There's also this whole side of, say you have a large sum of a certain asset and you want to hedge your bets. I'm not necessarily going to touch on that because it's more application like specific. So in terms of like what your needs are. But again, right, all these stuff you can learn out there, YouTube as a free source, like 100% go that route. But on Jupiter, so what is Jupiter? Why is the hype there and all this stuff? Like they had, I think, one of the largest airdrops recently as well. So incentivized trading, a lot of people bringing in volume. Then they get this access to these tokens, and it's kind of this snowball effect, right? So that's one avenue of why Jupiter is what it is today. And then on the other side, you kind of have all the things that you might need in a DeFi scenario, all in one application. I think that's another advantage that I've seen from a user perspective. That if I want to swap, if I want to bridge, if I want to gamble a little bit on perpetuals or whatever, right? Like a user might want to do in DeFi, then I can do it from one application. Say I want to be more on the investment side and I have some funds. I don't necessarily want to gamble, but like in what is it, 7% of all traders are actually more successful than the S&P 500 or something like a very, very short amount, a small amount of traders, day traders more specifically, are actually profitable. So, okay, what if I'm somebody that wants to bet on the other side? What if the traders, they try their trades and they're not necessarily successful? How do I play the house? Well, there's ways that you can kind of earn trading fees and all these things by just holding the ecosystem token for Jupiter. So that's another way. But I mean, without shilling, I guess, Jupiter too much, like the premise of it is like you have these building blocks that you can see that would be great to have on Harmony, right? Like on the chain that we all use and we're all used to, how do we get the same tooling and same user flow, and then we can improve on that from there. And now it's off to the races, but if we don't build the primitives first, there's not really a chance to get to that.
I didn't want to interrupt you, but I have to. So is this going to use the existing liquidity and be launched on Harmony, or is this the something that utilizes cross-chain things as well, or a combination of that, or can you share anything about that? Just using like existing assets?
Yeah, so the interesting thing that we're looking into is Panoptic, which again hasn't hit mainnet, and that's perpetual options. And what they do is they're directly tied to Uniswap v3. Um, and that's where their liquidity comes from. So in terms of a DeFi ecosystem, that's something that's very, very cool, because then you don't have to split liquidity between different applications, right? You don't have to go to a perp dex and load it up with like millions of dollars. You don't have to go to like borrowing, lending stuff, and you can just all go in the one house of the pools on Uniswap, for example. So I think that's the route that we're going to take. I think that's kind of that new evolution of kind of leveraging these AMMs that exist currently, and bringing it all together under kind of one house in one application that seamlessly like leverages that same liquidity across different dApps, rather than splitting it between every single dApp.
So you're talking the swap.harmony.1 v3 or different Uniswap v3?
Exactly. So Swap is an example of a Uniswap v3 fork that's live on Harmony. So that already fits perfectly into what we're presumably looking to build. But again, right, like we forked GMX, and we forked different things, and we're testing out. And but the way that I've seen, at least internally, is this progression towards this more unified space that prioritizes more UI and UX, and brings it all together. And I think if we push that and we continue to push it, and we prioritize like the user experience and kind of the way that all of these flow together, then you can go on to the next steps of, okay, liquidity here, and you don't have to worry about anywhere else. And then usability is already there. Harmony community is using it, and then right, another snowball effect.
Nice. Thanks for clarification. Does anybody have anything else on basically DeFi before we kind of switch a little bit? Okay. So this has been occurring up and down. This is still DeFi, but same but different. So another Kratos post, basically. Implemented smart contracts on Harmony Shard 1 to seamlessly transition Bitcoin runes into ERC20 tokens. So is this just a kind of reoccurring thing, or did this get like more flame under it recently, or just kind of, what's up?
I think, and if this was like another update, then I could be wrong, which happens. I mean, there's a lot of different developments going on all at once. But in terms of runes, there's not necessarily too much new that I've seen just around the space. And I think on one hand, I think that's really good. Like we'll see these different hypes in different cycles, and a lot of us have been here for quite a bit in the crypto space, so you guys would know. But in terms of Bitcoin, right? Like there was a massive push in Q1 of this year for like programmability to Bitcoin and getting all these dApps and tokens and all these things, and then quiet. And I think that at least reminds me of like the early days of Ethereum and kind of what is possible on certain chains and what is possible on Ethereum and what dApps are available. And then expands to where we are today. So I would say it's more so like I could very well see like a turn back to Bitcoin having all this development that now people currently aren't really talking about it too much, but there's still a lot of people building in that space because they realize like, I mean, it's the largest asset by market cap, and there's so much volume and so much liquidity and so much like just value inside of Bitcoin that is untapped. People are just sitting on it. But if you can bring DeFi to it and all these different things, borrowing, lending, programmability, whatever it may be, maybe even like reputation things. And we were looking at people who were doing the ordinals and things like that, and where you could actually inscribe on chain. and it's a trustless system. You can, like, two parties can point to the same ordinal and say like, hey, like this is verifiable, and all this stuff, right? Um, so I'd say, although that there isn't too much noise now, I think we could see another wave of that coming. Who knows, next few months, year, whatever it may be. But there's still that strong push to fight for kind of that programmability of Bitcoin. In terms of the Harmony narrative with Bitcoin, I'd say it's more so of um, kind of more waiting of like seeing the winners that are going to be in the space, rather than just jumping and doing something for the sake of doing it, just inscribing stuff to inscribe stuff. I think can be good in the moment and you following the hype, but long term doesn't really benefit anybody. That'd be my own 2 cents. I think if there is something that we're looking to do, then it'd be those building blocks and making sure that looking forward, when there is that next flow that goes through Bitcoin and Harmony, that Harmony can take advantage of it, and that Harmony users can kind of, if they want to bridge things over, or they want to like have an environment that has way cheaper fees and faster, or whatever it may be, just creating an environment to have, I'd say, like native Bitcoin or something directly embedded in dApps would be pretty cool.
I got an interesting thing that just popped in my head. So this cycle, we have the ETFs, and it's locking billions of dollars into Bitcoin. It's going to be locking billions of dollars into Ethereum. In the past, they would, people would get into Bitcoin and Ethereum, and then it would spread out to altcoins. How do you bridge? How do you get to those ETF people and get them to, get into altcoins? It's locked, right? It's a little bit different cycle. Is there a creative way to somehow get an airdrop to a person that holds an ETF? I don't know, but how do you make that the capital flow and get interested in other projects? Because in the past it would. Now it's locked. It's locked in there.
Yeah, I think just to jump off that real quick, in terms of where we're headed, first thing that popped in my mind was like the tokenization of everything. And if we push a narrative of everything's going to be on chain, like a lot of the things that we're used to that might not be immediately related, like I don't know, say driver's license or whatever, right, or tax ID that's on chain, verifiable, and I don't know, like social security, for example, like say different funding or different checks or whatever it may be, you could have a system that's on chain, and based on your social security, you can get like an airdrop, right? Or hey, like you participate in certain things. Like, what if you got XP for like paying your taxes? Like you can, and I don't know if that'll ever happen, but you can kind of just expand to ways that, what if the world was actually on chain? What if like say elections, right? Elections are coming up. Say all of that was through our phone, verifiable proof, and there wasn't any like discrepancy on anything behind the scenes. Everything is publicly verifiable. All these things, right, could be like that future that we could have, right? Like we saw with Bitcoin, how decentralization has created a global financial infrastructure. Well, what if we took that same decentralization and brought it to the internet, right? And we have this global internet architecture and infrastructure, and kind of housing that side of things, right? Like, and again, right, with Harmony, when you have a certain chain, that's why like a lot of the things in the space is you have to stay on your toes, because you want to make sure that, say, if there's an omni-chain narrative, that you can tie into these things. So that's why. So this year I reopened up conversations with Layer Zero for their Stargate bridge, for example, which is the largest DeFi, like decentralized bridge, right? So, and again, they have like bridge aggregators, and you can easily, like with one line of code, you can get access to that. Excuse me. So you kind of you have these building blocks that you set up early, so that when these narratives play out, and some do and some don't, but when they do, at least you're ready for the taking if you want to. If you're always chasing, right, you're never going to make it. But if you set yourself up right, and then all of a sudden the narrative comes to exactly where you are, it's a lot easier and a lot better for you.
Hate to get completely off a little bit. Has Harmony ever thought about like maybe building out the AI to become like a truth authentication chain? So we could tell the the BS from the not BS. Which I think is going to be super important as we're moving forward. It's going to be harder and harder to tell what's generated and what's quote unquote real. Does that ever come up in conversations? Is that even profitable? Can you tokenize that?
Can you repeat the first part? Cut out a little bit on my end.
Has Harmony ever thought about using like the AI that's being built now? Does it come up any conversations to use it to truth authenticate like information that's moving forward? It's going to be harder and harder to tell what's AI generated, what's real. Are the candidates for presidents, is that like a computer generated, or is that the real candidate? Is it real? Is it BS? Is it from Russia? Has Harmony, does that ever come up to become use the speed and affordability to leverage the AI to tell what's real and what's not real?
I would say it's definitely in conversations about using AI. Like we did have our little venture into AI for a few months during last year, and then trying to see ways of combining those two things and seeing like how does data on chain make sense. Like there's certain things that you want on chain and public, and certain things that you don't. How do you make sure that the security remains the same on both sides? And then you can go towards like inscriptions, and you tie like off-chain indexing, and then you bring off-chain indexing to now the thing that you want to verify and prove for off-chain documents or whatever it may be. And you have kind of this hybrid chain of like a trustless ecosystem. In terms of directly kind of the conversations of using AI specifically for that use case, not necessarily yet. I mean, it's again with AI and crypto, we're in such the early days that you could really make anything. And honestly, like there's people that are making anything, and then they'll get funding for it in like Silicon Valley or whatnot, right? Like everyone's kind of talking about AI and building certain things, and as soon as they attach AI and crypto, it's like bam, they get funded or whatnot. But like we won't see definitively what'll stick around in the next few years. And who knows? Like say it is behind like closed doors, and it is OpenAI that has the advantage. And let's say like in terms of everything AI, all of what we do is just through them. Like in terms of just from a higher level perspective, like I would prefer that there's at least a decentralized solution. Okay, how do you create that? How do you build that? And we're seeing some people in the space that are doing that. How does Harmony, tie into that, right? Like whether we position ourselves to compete with those people or position ourselves to be a protocol that like has endpoints and allows these people to build and improve Harmony itself, or it is like these similar like smaller applications where like say like the Harmony One bot, you can use your one tokens or whatever it may be, and it gives another use case that other chains don't necessarily have. And kind of again, right, this hybrid like on-chain off-chain narrative. But that's kind of like a really really long way to answer that we are talking about AI, but not necessarily that specific use case. But again, that we're not closed off to any use case, because why would you be closed off?
Right. Thanks for the answer. So here it is. So we tokenize the truth authentication. So we tokenize the truth. I think if we can do that, we'd be have to give ourselves a pat on the back for our society. If we could reward people for being honest. I think there might be some ground if we could maybe tie that into inscriptions, and however we get there. I think it'd be cool. So speaking of the Harmony One bot, has there been any more developments about getting that onto the main website, and or are there any developments on the Harmony One website that you could potentially share with us?
So main website, there was a time I was working with Elena, who's our designer, amazing designer, by the way. So shout outs to Elena. But in terms of the website itself, we've kind of been deprioritized a little bit to focus on this Panoptic and more DeFi focus. There is some work behind the scenes, and we're kind of iterating through different things. Last time I checked, I think the components of what the requirements were for the main website were that it had to be a Notion page, and that we could use Notion templates. So there are some decent ones, but again, it's not necessarily like a landing page, at least to the quality that I've seen for different chains, and it'd be great to have that for Harmony. But again, that does take time, and if it's not necessarily prioritized, then you can't really achieve that. But I think in terms of breaking it down and getting stepping stones, I think starting with a Notion template rather than just a Notion page would be nice. I think it could work. We could add some like UI UX elements in terms of, and I'm going to just spit words out here that feel free to let them go in one ear and out the other. But information architecture, for example, which if I break it down quickly, you want to make sure that everybody who could potentially end up on your site gets to where they're looking. So if you're a developer, you can go immediately to where you need to, and you can start developing on Harmony. If you're a degen or crypto enthusiast or something, you have a page where you can maybe go to NFTs, dApps, whatever it may be, staking, bridging, whatever, right? You're completely new to crypto. It has a nice onboarding flow and brings you to the right places so that you can learn kind of the basics that all of us here kind of intuitively know because we've just spent the time. But again, right, if you're going to have the masses, you need a place for somebody who has never touched crypto to get to like point Z or whatever on this like checklist in a way that does not seem daunting, and they're not terrified about sending funds to an address and worrying that the last digit is actually wrong or that they've copy pasted it twice or something and it goes to an old address. Like there's kind of these things that would be nice to have kind of that built-in safeguard, but again, then you lose some decentralization. So there's always drawbacks to anything. But in terms of a landing page, right, your landing page is that first kind of pass at the end user. So it's insane. It's so important. And then like 90% of your budget is like gone in the first few words that people see and like that first hero section. So if you don't have like that's well thought out and good, like in my honest opinion, don't have a landing page. Like just get rid of it. And that might be harsh, but you know, like that's like if it's not helping, then it's hurting. And I think it'd be nice to kind of get that new like rebuild of a landing page that and then what's a good thing about landing pages is once you've put in that work, you know, it's kind of this set and forget kind of thing. And like yeah, okay, you can update certain things and currently on our page, like the tweets, right? You can update tweets and everything that's nice. But like, again, a lot of people are seeing those tweets on Twitter and not necessarily looking through the Harmony page. In terms of ecosystem, like shout outs, that is a good thing. You know, that is great to have the ecosystem and active voices on the landing page, right? That's something that you don't really see on other landing pages. So, you know, there's some things that we can take and we can build into this really, really good website. But again, these things take time. And if you don't prioritize them, they don't happen. So I would just say, yeah, like it's something that I'm very hopeful. It's, I think we've also looked into Framer before. This was Elena and I, we were looking at different kind of the no code tools so we can build quickly. I know a little bit of front end on my side, but again, right, like it takes time, right? You can't just like, oh yeah, let me whip this up in 5 minutes and all these things. But yeah, a nice Framer site that again has some of Elena's designs and has that user flow and has all those aspects that I like quickly touched on. Yeah, I think we can have at least at the very, very least, we'd have a nice place of landing into the Harmony ecosystem. And then you can build from there, you can strip away more. But I think like right now we kind of have an outline potentially of a site. And I think with a little bit of polishing and again, just time spent on it, I think we could have a really, really good landing page that takes people directly to where they want to go.
I'm bullish on how big you guys think. That's great. It sounds like it. I don't know. We'll stop there. So how hard or easy would it be to just add 2 buttons? So one would be a button when you land on the page that it just adds the network, just an easy click, add network, and the second one to have something that connects so that people can change their OX and one address on there. Just some, or those, and it doesn't even have to be super, way pretty, just to be functional and work. Is that realistic? Is that like a hard, expensive thing, or
I think, anything that takes time and effort is always going to be expensive at some point. Like somewhere you have to pay up. But I think in terms of just getting buttons, I don't really know how the base Notion site does the buttons. I think you could have links. But again, if like the utility's there and the need is there, then it could be really helpful. And we all know, right? Like most of us, at least I assume, right? Most of us use the Explorer like to change our address, like probably 98% of the time. And then the other 2% is like to check on transactions or to look at certain NFTs or whatever it may be, right? But if that's that main use case, and we are seeing it that it is that, why not have it on the main landing page? And then I forgot what was the other button you wanted?
So the RPC and the OX to one. So if people, like, for instance, and then if you had a better RPC, you could just swap that out. Whenever there's an upgrade or whatever, you just swap it behind the scenes on the back end. And I won't name drop, but there's other blockchains that you on the landing page you just add RPC. And I've personally spent probably, I don't know, 50 hours plus on trying to teach people how to do it. And then when I was first onboarding years ago, I spent 50 hours plus trying to learn myself. So two of the biggest questions I run into with people is how do you add the RPC so people can use Harmony One so they can send their funds. And then after they do that, how can they send their funds? Because if on these DEX to DeFi, the conversions, weird. So even people that have been here for years, even I've ran into issues with them. So it's 2 pretty big issues. So sorry, that was a long answer.
No, it's really, really good to bring that up because it's stuff that people face, and I think like early months of joining Harmony, I put that into a proposal into kind of, changing up like the 0x and 1.1 and kind of having that be neutral and set to 0x by default. And then also going to exchanges so that's 0x as well. And then everyone's kind of in this 0x narrative. You don't have to second guess, and then you don't have to worry about going to the Explorer to make sure you're having the right address. Or you get in trouble and you send like a 0x to a 1.1 when it should have been 0x. And like, you don't want that to happen, right? So having that extra like 1.1 address is unnecessary. In the beginning, layer 1, you want to differentiate, you have all these things, but we're seeing that there's more of that pull and push to have like this layer 2 narrative that Harmony can also be a part of because it's EVM compatible. Excuse me. So then you look at the side of how does that actually happen, and then you have these partnerships, you talk to people, and the biggest hurdle is probably getting the exchanges to accept the different wallets. But again, those are just conversations, and again, it's just time, and if you prioritize it, it can be done. I think in terms of the downside, it would be anybody who's already developed and maybe their chain or their DApp or whatever on Harmony is using the 1.1 address, and then all of a sudden we switch to a default 0x, would that have any issues? I think just off the top of my head, from a technical standpoint, they would not, because they're backwards compatible. So if you have 0x or you have 1.1, at least on Harmony, they're essentially the same thing. So there's not that much downside and a huge potential upside in terms of usability. But again, right, like all these things on paper are nice. If you don't prioritize them, again, nothing really gets done. So it's just a matter of, okay, when is it going to have its time? Like internally, we have discussed it. And then, you get a few people behind it. You get these pushes done. You have the open conversations with the different developers or the different dexes and all of that on the ecosystem. You can post in the top forum. You can even have a governance vote if you want to. Like you can have these conversations and push them, but again, like if there isn't really that main drive to do it, then it won't get done, right? These other things that are put above it, like you'll prioritize that, and then you check again once that's done what the next thing is.
Maybe I'll rephrase this in a different but same. So if a new person comes to Harmony and wants to learn about Harmony, like where should they go? Where like as trying to help onboard people to Harmony, like where what if you had to like do your top 2 or 3 links, what would you say? Like,
I think top few links off the top of my head would be the main Harmony Twitter, main Harmony website, and then the staking dashboard. Just in terms of like bare minimum proof of stake chain, what's the utility that you get that's different than others? It is that that staking element. And then once you have that set up and you're ready to go, maybe you can look around and see different things. That's just personally what I think would do. But again, right, like so many people have different reasons for going to different chains. And I wouldn't want to definitively have 3 links, or 4 links or 5 links or links in general, like in an ideal world, people would go to Harmony.one and they would be like, it would be so easy to follow, your question of either like changing the address from 1.1 to 0x, or even like we know these things internally. Like we know that that's a big issue that people are dealing with and something that's tedious, same thing as loading in the RPC and the endpoints, that's a definitive thing that you have to do to use Harmony is you have to customize your endpoint, right? So we know these things are a factor, but we're not helping the end user do it whatsoever in our current setup. And I think that should change. I think like if you do have that website, maybe it's not like the 2 buttons that are there, but maybe you follow and you're reading through the page and you realize like, hey, like, wait a minute, I want to explore the dApp ecosystem. Like, okay, what if when you click dApps, it didn't just take you straight to like all these dApps that you have no idea what the heck is going on, but it takes you to kind of a questionnaire or a flow or user flow or something where it kind of filters you to get to your endpoint. You answer like, hey, like I don't have MetaMask. It's like, oh, wait a minute, like let's download that first, let's get this stuff. Like there's no point in pushing whatever dApp into people's faces if they don't have a wallet, right? That's just a given. And there's these kind of prerequisites that a lot of people figure out on their own, and it'd be nice if they didn't have to. And a lot of chains and a lot of landing pages, they don't necessarily have that. They're assuming you're already in crypto and you want to explore this certain chain, which is great, and it works for them and all that stuff. But in terms of gearing towards the masses and having the masses be involved in this discussion, like I guarantee a lot of the masses have not heard of Harmony whatsoever. So, okay, like how do you bridge that gap of somebody going to a landing page and then you tell them about like you're running like ETH transactions just much quicker? Well, this user has never heard of Ethereum, or maybe they have and they just never used it. And how are they supposed to know whether it's faster or not? Or like, okay, like I've heard a lot about fees and like these are 100x cheaper fees. Okay, that's a good one. Like that's something that like without even knowing, I know that this chain is 100x like better in terms of gas costs than Ethereum. Like that's something like, and you can do this with everything, like throughout every single process that a user might have. Different user personas like UX flow and all these things, right? There are people who have degrees in this stuff, like this stuff, like, and it works. Like you look at Robinhood, right? Robinhood spent millions and millions into making their like platform from a psychological aspect, like very, very easy to follow.
That's where I came through. Yeah,
exactly. But to your point about like having the RPCs themselves and having that whole aspect, like you would have to have a connect wallet feature on the main page if you wanted it, because you would be changing things within their wallet. And then they would have to sign a transaction to add it. I think the best way of doing it might not be that route. Yeah, you save on automation, but the user feels no control, and they're signing transactions on a wallet that they have no idea what they're doing, right? Presumably they're doing it for the first time, or they're used to MetaMask, and then all of a sudden things are happening in their wallet and they have to trust it. But I think that there should be like at least a flow that you can go to where you can see, okay, here's the number that you have to enter, right? Like the one, and then was it 4 6s and 5 zeros? Like you have to go through those steps.
That's the thing, right? Sorry to interrupt, but that's the thing. When it comes down to it, you copy and paste 3 or 4 things. That's it. But you just have to have the right 3 or 4 things, right?
Yeah, and if you had them easily listed out and you can just one-click copy all of them, your onboarding is already so much quicker, so much easier. And you save and on the stickiness of like somebody going to Harmony, trying to connect to dApps, and then like some chains have it and they'll automatically add Harmony at the click of a button or certain things. But if you're brand new, like you're not going to do it, and you're not going to figure it out. And you'll probably go back to, I don't know, say Coinbase or something, or Robinhood, and you'll just hold on to your assets and you'll try something else.
Yeah, and I guess I never thought of it like that. You could have potential like scammers. Say it'd be easy if somebody popped up a scam site and then they put a little click link on there, just looks just like Harmony. Then all of a sudden it could lead to bad stuff too. I'm happy. I just happened. Excuse me. Hold on. I just happened to go to the Harmony One site, and CryptoLand's on it, which kind of leads into my next point, I guess. Something that CryptoLand DAO wants to be in the future is to be like a live on hands switchboard 24/7. So, with real people and smart contract and support, tickets or whatever for that type of nature. So. Hopefully, somehow we can get listed and promoted in the right spots and build trust to be able to help, to help with doing these things that we're talking about, or, safe links or safety or any of this stuff, information, how to get from here to there, all that stuff. So I just I thought that was a nice little lead in there because I thought I'd come check out the website just to see. And there is, it is integrated with the .country stuff though, right, Theo?
Yeah, exactly. So it's being pushed from like a Notion page. I don't know if it's necessarily like a specific endpoint that is on .country. Let me try to take out the www. Yeah, so it is. So it is tied to it. And yeah, again, like in terms of the cheapest way to get a website on a domain, if you don't mind that .country at the end, it is through .country, right? Like I think it's even like 1.1 or something. I don't know if the prices have changed, but like 1.1 for, I think it's either a month or 3 months or something, which is, in terms of domains, like it's ridiculously cheap. And that only happens because Harmony itself, right, owns the TLD, which is top level domain of .country. So like the .country, .com, right? These are all top level domains, and .country is one of them. Which again, right, is an insane development that like no other chain can possibly have, because it's so rare to own a TLD in general. And even rarer is like a TLD in crypto. I think we're the only ones. There's like an ENS and GoDaddy kind of partnership, but again, right, partnership, not direct integration. But we have an entire TLD. So you go to ENS or you go to Unstoppable Domains and you look up your domain, like .whatever. And if you're in Brave, or I think Oracle, I think is the other one, or there's two different browsers. If you're in those, like great, like you can see your thing and there's not a real issue. But the vast majority of people are either on Safari or on Chrome. And if you try to look up an ENS domain from a browser on Chrome or Safari, you get nothing, right? And you can do different services and different XYZs, and you can get different domains like that. But again, like just your wallet itself, like imagine you had like say a Harmony.1, for example, or Harmony.com or whatever it is, right? And you wanted to provide money or whatever to that person or different things. Like this is the first time that you could potentially have like a wallet that's also a searchable like TLD, which can bring like different aspects to web development or websites, and like how we pay for certain things or how certain things are optimized. And like if you wanted to check like the balance sheet of Robinhood, you just went to robinhood.com and you searched it up in your Explorer. Like there's kind of all these different utilities that you could possibly build out with this infrastructure. And I think again, like it's one of those things that's like if you do spend that time to prioritize and you build that one thing, like you can go for it, but you'll miss out on a lot of different either trends or different developments. But something that is super, super unique to Harmony, that Harmony can build if they want to.
Yeah, it's just another thing, kind of like the runes, right? That it's this whole huge playground that could have its own whole team, right? Just building on .country stuff. Right? I hope that there could be I hope that there can be a switchboard, whether it's CryptoLand DAO, whether it's AI or whatever, where you can just where anybody can just kind of go and get some kind of trusted interaction to onboard. So I think that's one of the biggest problems for getting people on. People just trying to take that leap, going, like I usually say, going to get the SEX, getting their money from the bank to the crypto exchange, and then finally having to take that leap from the crypto exchange to the actual blockchain. That's just, people are scared.
Yeah, exactly. You're off to the races. Like in terms of that switchboard, it'd be really nice, like all across the board, like kind of going from like say even like all these things that are potential developments for Harmony. Like it'd be nice to have a dashboard of community sentiment, and you could have people that participate, and they can sign transactions or whatever for no fees, or just sign a transaction that costs nothing, and you pay like minimum fees on Harmony. Excuse me, but then you can go to and you can vote on development, right? Like, do you want to see this like developed more, or this or that? You kind of create this hub where the community decides kind of where to build and what to spend more time on.
Yes, sir. All right, we're kind of getting towards the top of the show here, I think. Did you guys, did anybody have anything? I'm going to kind of do a little DAO talk maybe and just kind of close us out unless anybody has some stuff to say. But man, what an awesome conversation. Looking forward to hearing this recording. Try to keep them on time though, but it's easy just to go overboard whenever I pick your brain. So I appreciate everybody's time, and I'll just give you guys a second to speak up. All right, sounds like we're in agreement. Give it the close down. So yeah, we're gonna close down on show number 6. I just want to do a quick little update, DAO corner. I see that we got the Harmonauts DAO in here. So CryptoLand DAO is not currently minting. Our governance token won't be available after 6 days. The link is in my profile. If you want to come there and check us out, we're just mostly on Discord. Find a bunch of information that we've talked about. That's pretty secure. I'm working on trying to get a YouTube video of how the onboarding kind of works just to get in there. So that's going for another 6 days. Other than that, a little update on CryptoLand DAO. Meta One class is currently building out the governance structure. So people with these NFTs will be able to propose proposals, and people with the governance token wage will be able to vote. This system will also ideally be implemented with the Harmonauts DAO too. So that's just another bit of information that's hopefully coming down the pipeline, that next time we have a any kind of interaction with the Harmonauts DAO governance, it could be done on chain with NFTs. So using the Hog token and the Harmonauts NFTs potentially. So the infrastructure is being built, or it is built. It's being tested now. So hopefully within the next month or so, that will be completed and handed over to both DAOs. So just want to give that little update. Yeah, I guess we'll go ahead and close it out. Yeah, happy Juneteenth. Awesome information. Hopefully this one can be on the Harmonauts, the Harmony One YouTube within the next week. And appreciate you guys as always, and thanks for everybody for their contributions, and thanks for everybody that listened in and that is listening in the future. So appreciate you guys. We'll talk with you later.